And I refuse to also believe that all moms are pushing men away. I refuse to believe the narrative that because you chose wrong or you got with a partner who decided to leave, and that's now your fault as well.
Your first son,
Yeah.
when you were raising your first son, and you were going through those those adolescent years, those formative years, the the years where we know everything and y'all know nothing, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. Did you feel like that you had to lose yourself to get your son through that stage?
Yeah, I don't think I ever thought that until now. Not until my later years. When you become a mother, especially when you're a single mother and you're not having that support that you deserve, because that is a 50-50 responsibility. And I refuse to also believe that all moms are pushing men away. I refuse to believe the narrative that because you chose wrong or you got with a partner who decided to leave, and that's now your fault as well. But to your point, I did not recognize that I am a person, an individual, and Kendall was my identity instead of just mom until later years. Like, and when I say later, I mean over the last 5 to 10 years. My life has evolved around both of my children from the day that they were born. Like I said, my older son, I never experienced those teenage things with him. And that's simply because he's so much like me when it comes to empathy, compassion, grace. We grew up together. He was actually the one I did not have problems with ever. But what happened is it was the younger one. He has been the one, and just for your audience, I'm an estranged mom, but I'm estranged by choice, by not by force. And we'll touch on that as well, I'm sure. But my younger son, who's 29, is the one that I have had a lot of turmoil with from the moment his father and I got divorced over 20 years ago up until present day. And yeah, part of it was the divorce, right? And granted, I know divorce can be earth-shattering, but I also believe you staying in a toxic, abusive marriage can also be traumatizing and earth-shattering for your children. So it's either you get out and remove yourself and your children from that situation, or you stay in and they get to witness it. So it's a lose-lose situation no matter what. But yeah, my younger son is the one that I was having a lot of trouble with. I didn't have problems with my older son. And that's because he even said, it's because, Mom, I saw what you were going through with him so much that I didn't want to cause you any more trouble. So what happened is my focus was not on my older son because I was so focused on the younger one, always getting in trouble, always having an issue, always being combative, always being abusive, all the things that I experienced with him, that my older son flew under the radar, and he tried to be perfect in a world where I teach them to be as authentic as I am. And I had to be accountable for that and acknowledge that. I even talk about it in my book how I had to shift my focus back to the fact that my son, who didn't give me any problems, he deserved to be recognized. And it's not because you love one or the other more. You may love your children differently. That's a whole nother conversation. It's not that I loved him more. It's that my attention was always on him because he was always causing havoc. No, it was me. Son, I'm going this way. Yeah, like I said, I'm estranged by choice, not by force. And that's a different topic.
Well, can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, so when I say estranged by choice and not by force, meaning I made a conscious decision that I was no longer going to tolerate being verbally, emotionally, and financially abused by the child that I gave birth to, that I've loved, that I have supported, that I've shown up for in every sense of the word. And I decided in September of 2023 that I was no longer going to tolerate that abuse just because he was my son. So I chose distance over disrespect, and I chose my peace over proximity as a mom.
So, okay, so I think that you're the actual person that does what all moms threaten to do. Like,
Mm.
I ain't gonna take this from my, nobody and stuff like that. But they actually do take it because, like,
Yeah.
what else are you gonna do? You chose different. What was that thought process of getting to that point? Because I would imagine that there's so much that goes on that there's a natural thing that kind of fights against you that I'm not,
Definitely.
So what was that thought process?
So I always say this, and women get very upset when I say that there is a slight chemical imbalance when it comes to motherhood, moms and their children. And they don't like when I say it, but it's the truth. There's a chemical imbalance because men are different, right? And it's because you didn't carry them. There's a different type of bond that I'm fully aware of as a mother. However, I believe that I'm a human as well. And I think that moms, they negate that fact. So not only do we innately believe mentally that this is our child, so we should tolerate being called names, being verbally abused, them stealing from us, them threatening us, all the things that I experienced from my younger son. And we innately believe, and society tells us this is what you should do. You should tolerate this. You're a mom. How could you do this? How could you feel this way about your child? How could you not talk to your child? What kind of mom are you? But nobody ever places the focus on the fact that I had a son who threatened my life, my husband's life, to destroy my beautiful home by sending people from somewhere else to come and do something to my home, threatened other family members like my mother and his 83-year-old grandfather. Anytime he doesn't get his way, or you don't say whatever he wants, or you don't give him what he wants. And in 2023, over a simple matter that could have been discussed and we could have moved on, he decided to call and threaten his mother and say some things to me that I wouldn't tolerate anybody saying to me. And it's things that he said before, but that in that moment, that was it for me.
So you're not talking about like, oh, he didn't take out the trash and he won't get a
No.
job. It's not that. It was like some serious.
No.
Okay.
It was serious. And that's another thing. These kids now like to talk about, oh, you caused trauma and moms are narcissists and all these other things that are circling around in these echo chambers within social media and pop culture. But nobody is talking about the real stories about what some moms are enduring. Women are being murdered by their children. And no one is talking about that. I have a personal family friend who became a prisoner in her home from her own child that she loved with everything, her only child. She loved him with everything she had. Years she couldn't have a child. She finally had a child, raised this child, he experienced life, traveled, love, always being supported. She became a prisoner in her own home because he, for whatever reason, either he got involved with drugs or the wrong people, he murdered his mom as she poured coffee to go to work the next morning. And no one is having these conversations. So yeah, it wasn't just, oh, he didn't take out the trash, or oh, he just pissed me off for no reason. No, these were serious threats and things that have been said that pushed me, and they have been happening for 20 plus years, that pushed me to the point where I'm like, I'm no longer tolerating this.
You have a very, very interesting take on pop psychology. By the way, I
I
hate
do.
it. I hate
Yeah.
pop psych. It's the worst thing in the world. It's exactly
Yes.
what you said. It's echo chambers. You hear something
Yeah.
that's cute and you have no
Yeah.
research and you
None.
say, oh, yeah, okay, that's me.
Yeah.
The last 3 years, everybody that doesn't agree with you is a narcissist. You know,
Everybody.
so I absolutely hate it. But I don't
Hmm.
think until I started listening to your show and like following you a little bit that I never heard somebody push back against the current psychology and the things that's going on and the abuse that parents are going through, specifically mothers for,
Hmm.
and we'll get into that.
Hmm.
How did you? I'm always interested on how people think. How did you get to the point of like, wait a minute, they may have degrees and all of that good stuff, but I don't. Something's not clicking here.
I'll start with my own experience. I remember going to a therapist years ago. He was a white male, so that was already, that should have been a red flag because we had absolutely nothing in common at that point. Yeah, listen, I mean, it is what it is, but he was. We had nothing in common. He couldn't understand me from a cultural perspective. He didn't understand me from being a woman. Like, there's several different things. And again, I'm not anti-therapy, so I want to be very clear on that. I'm just anti-weaponizing therapy. That is my problem with therapy. And this man, I would tell him at the time it was because my mother and I had a very contentious relationship. So I've dealt with that as well. And the things that he would tell me, first, they weren't true. Although we had contention, I knew what the contention was for my mother and myself. But the things that he was trying to tell me, I knew they weren't true. And the way he was trying to tell me how to respond culturally is not something that we were taught to do. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. So I stopped going to him. And then I started seeing another therapist during COVID because mentally I was struggling with seeing so many things real time. The George Floyd, the attack on the Capitol, all these things, I was seeing them in real time, and it was really starting to impact my mental well-being. And even with that therapist, I would tell her about my experiences as a child, and I've gone through a lot of things. I witnessed domestic violence with my own parents from the age of 5 up until I was a teenager. My father was an addict. I dealt with that as well. My father was incarcerated in and out a lot of different times. My mom and dad were divorced several times. And then my mom was abusive as well. However, when I talked to that therapist, I would talk about those experiences because she would like, well, tell me about your childhood. And I would just tell her very matter of factly because I had gotten over it. Do they still remain in my memory? Absolutely. But am I ruminating on them 50 plus years later? Absolutely not. And she would say to me, oh, you talk about those things like you're just going to go get a loaf of bread. She wanted me to break down and cry. And when I recognized that, I was like, girl, you're not helping me solve the real problem. I'm coming to you about my kids. That's my situation right now. And she didn't know how to navigate that space. And then additionally, as I continue to see the attacks on moms, and I'm going to say that because majority of all the content, all the therapists, all the content creators, the narrative is being pushed against moms and black women. That's number one. And it just made me think like all of y'all are saying the same things. And then the adult children are saying the same things. Like you said, somebody doesn't disagree with me. They're a narcissist. My mom is a narcissist. Oh, I called my mom and text her. She wouldn't answer. I'm abandoned. These type of things that are circulating around on social media. And I'm like, therapy. And not only that, Gerald, I hear it from the moms. You know how many moms say, my child and I had a great relationship. They started going seeing a therapist and then they changed. And then I've also experienced it with personal friends. Someone that I've been super, super close with, considered a sister, much younger than myself. And we've never had any contention, arguments, disagreements. Not that we had to agree with everything. We just didn't have a dynamic where it required that. We've always been able to talk about everything. She started going to therapy. I became a problem.
I, the here's I don't have a problem with therapy. I don't have a
Yeah, I
problem
don't
with
either.
therapy.
Not
I
anti-therapy.
I think the problem with therapy, modern
Mm-hmm.
therapy, and the egotisticalness of our culture right now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, it's just like this Molotov cocktail of something that's
Oh
getting ready
yeah.
to explode because
Yeah.
we're the hero. We're the heroes in our own story every single time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
everybody who isn't affirming
He's the
us
villain.
and is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I this is one thing that I kind of discovered as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 girls, 12, 10, and 9. They all just
Okay.
they just all had their birthdays. Shout out to Savannah,
Okay.
Lee, and Amaya if they
Happy birthdays.
ever hear this 20 years later. Um, as a kid, I was a human being, and I was raised by a single mom. I was a human being. I was a kid growing up, and my mom was mom. Like
Mm-hmm.
she had all the responsibility. Mom was mom.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, I'm a human being, and my kids are kids.
Mm-hmm.
At no point in my mind ever were anybody in those relationships ever just humans.
Mm-hmm.
They were just roles. And and I mean the old saying is true. Once you get old, you kind of realize how right your parents were.
Oh yeah.
My mom wasn't right about everything, no, but
Mm-hmm.
she what she was that she was a 20-something-year-old woman with three boys. She was
Mm-hmm.
a 30-year-old something woman with three teenagers. She
Mm-hmm.
was a 40-year-old woman who gave her whole youth and her whole time to raising
Yeah.
these boys. And then these boys grow up, do their own thing, and now she has no life
Mm-hmm.
because she
Mm-hmm.
gave everything to those boys, trying to raise them. And the thing that I love that's interesting about you is that you're trying to catch those moms before they give it all up.
Yeah. It's too late for some of them. It's too late for some of them, because they have wrapped their entire identity up into motherhood, similar to myself. And then when that's over and done with in this estrangement, these women even say they want to take their lives because their children are no longer talking to them.
Okay, so I want to get into like kind of like the general thing of motherhood and like what you're seeing and who you're talking to and who you're coaching and who
Mhm.
you're meeting with because you're doing a great work out there. Um,
Thank you.
what's happening with the modern mom these days? Because like you're saying, the the I don't even want to say misnomers. I don't know what word to use, but the
Mhm.
ideas of 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago about
Mhm.
once that kid comes out of you, your life is over. Like that idea
Mhm.
isn't like that's not it anymore. So like but okay, what are you seeing in the motherhood space now?
So
Who you're
there's different
talking to?
generations. Uh, I'm talking to different generations from different perspectives. Okay, let's be clear on that. I'm talking to the boomer parent who has 40-plus-year-old kids who've decided not to talk to them anymore, or they haven't spoken to them. One lady says she hasn't spoken to her child in 35 years. 35 years, and this woman is still ruminating and saying how heartbroken she is because her child won't talk to her. Then I'm talking. Some of them don't know, allegedly. And listen, there's three sides to every story. There's yours, mine's, and the truth, right? And I'm fully aware of that. You can't play in my face with that at all. Some of them are political reasons. Some of the children stop talking to them for who they voted for. I try to stay away from that, but if you bring it up, I'm going to address it because I don't necessarily agree that a child should stop talking to their parent for their political beliefs. However, I do believe your child is going to look at you differently if you have political beliefs that not just don't align with theirs, but that go against humanity, equality, justice, all of diversity, all of those things.
I'm going to move
Okay?
you on because that can be a whole show
A
right
whole
there.
nother show. Right.
Yeah.
So, but to the point. So I'm aware of those two, right? They tread lightly when they bring it up, but when you bring it up, I'm gonna address it. Then a lot of women, Gerald, they don't know. A lot of them don't know. A lot of them have said, me and my child had an amazing relationship, or me and my children had amazing relationships. They started going to therapy, they came from therapy, and then all of a sudden they needed boundaries. I became a narcissist. They became estranged from their parent, and some of them claim to not know the reason behind it. Some of them have begged and pleaded. And when I say not just verbally, I have talked to moms and coached them in different countries. And these women have said, against my religious belief, because you don't beg and plead to your child, you don't grovel at their feet. They have physically gotten down on their knees, begging their children to tell them why they have become estranged. Some of it is their peers. Some of it is because they refuse to continue to funding them financially. I've had moms say, I gave my child $20,000 for a down payment on a home. And then as soon as they got into the home, they stopped talking to me. Same thing with weddings, same things with so many different things. There are so many diverse reasons. And then there are no reasons because a lot of it has no validity. Because what is happening is you're going into social media, you're seeing all of these people saying what their experiences are with no validity to a certain degree. And then they're taking that on. So they're trauma bonding. They're creating these false narratives, and now their parents become the targets. And when I say their parents, 90% of it is going to be the moms. You rarely hear anything about dads across social media.
As a dad, I disagree.
Well, you must be on a different algorithm and send it to me because I don't.
You don't want my algorithm. My algorithm is cameras, podcasting, and
That might
dads
be good.
and
Might be a
wrestling.
change in the break. But okay, and that's fine. You may see it, but I'm going to tell you with someone who is on social media, now a content creator, which is not something I asked for at all, nor did I want to do. I rarely see anybody speaking on dads. It's majority of moms.
So I'll share you my experience.
Hmm.
Um, dads are um paint the way that dads are painted. I'll say that dads are painted as buffoons. We're the
No.
yeah. Well, hear me out. Hear me out. Okay, dads are the buffoons that. Oh man, I'm trying to fix a sink, but I can't fix a sink, so all the water's gonna explode everywhere, or we can't put together a table, or we're absentee, or we're not responsible, or women can't depend on us, or why all of these things. We're not emotionally there for our kids. We need to step up and be a man, and we need to. If you're not making a $500,000, then what are you doing? You're a
Oh
failure as a
wow.
man, as a husband, and as a father.
Mhm.
So like all of these things are out there.
Mhm.
And not even not listen. Let me tell you a short story. We was in me and my loving wife. Shout out to Danielle. We were at a comedy. We were seeing a comedy show. There had to be a better way to say that. We were at a comedy show, and it was this comedian. She was really really funny. I can't think of her name. My God. But anyway, she was making this joke about how she doesn't. She only celebrates Black holidays, right? So
Mhm.
like all the American holidays, you don't celebrate. So, um, which one? She was like Memorial Day is just. Did you know that Memorial Day was created by a black person, and then white people took it and like, oh yeah, I got a good idea, Memorial Day. So her point was, okay, so what's the next holiday? And everybody yelled out Fourth of July. One
Skip over
person,
Father's Day.
one person said, "What about Father's Day?"
I can definitely agree with that. Unfortunately, I can definitely agree with that. Although I celebrate my husband, shout out to you, baby. I celebrate my husband Father's Day. It's a big thing to me because he's the man that stepped in and took on the role of two other men who refused to take on their own responsibility, and he has children himself.